And for nearly 70 years, millions were expected to accept it. After the American Civil War ended in 1865, slavery was officially abolished in the United States. For a brief moment, many formerly enslaved Black Americans believed freedom had finally arrived. But across the southern United States, white lawmakers quickly began constructing a new system designed to preserve racial hierarchy. The system became known as Jim Crow. For decades in America, something as simple as sitting on a bus could become an act of humiliation. Not because of crime, not because of violence, but because of skin color. Imagine paying for your seat, then being told you could not sit on it. Imagine boarding a crowded bus after a long day of work, only to stand for miles while empty seats remain reserved for someone considered more human than you. This was not a rare incident. This was the law. And for millions of Black Americans living under Jim Crow, public buses became rolling symbol of fear, inequality, and daily psychological warfare. But what makes this story truly terrifying is how ordinary it all became. Because segregation was not enforced only by angry mobs or extremist politicians. It was enforced through everyday routines. Bus drivers, signs, laws, silence. And for nearly 70 years, millions were expected to accept it. After the American Civil War ended in 1865, slavery was officially abolished in the United States. For a brief moment, many formerly enslaved Black Americans believed freedom had finally arrived. But across the southern United States, white lawmakers quickly began constructing a new system designed to preserve racial hierarchy. That system became known as Jim Crow. The name came from a racist 19th century minstrel character used to mock Black people. Over time, Jim Crow became the term for laws enforcing racial segregation across the South. Schools were separated, restaurants were separated, water fountains were separated, hospitals separated, even death was segregated. In some southern towns, cemeteries were divided by race. And among the most visible symbols of this system were public buses. By the late 19th century and early 20th century, many southern states had passed laws requiring racial segregation on streetcars and buses. Black passengers were usually forced to sit at the back, while white passengers sat in the front. But the reality was even more degrading than most people realized, because the rules could change at any moment. A Black passenger could be sitting legally in a designated row until more white passengers boarded. Then suddenly Black riders would be ordered to stand up and surrender their seats. Not asked, ordered. And refusing could lead to arrest, beatings, or worse. Now imagine this happening every single day of your life. You wake up before sunrise, you work exhausting hours, you pay the same bus fare as everyone else. But the moment you step onto the bus, the law reminds you exactly where society believes you belong. And the humiliation began before many Black passengers sat down. In cities like Montgomery, Alabama, Black riders often had to pay at the front of the bus, then step back off and re-enter through the rear door. Sometimes the bus driver will intentionally drive away before they could get back on, leaving them stranded after already paying. And bus drivers had enormous power. Many carried guns. Some routinely cursed at black passengers. Others physically assaulted riders who challenged segregation rules. Under Jim Crow, bus drivers were not simply transportation workers. In many southern cities, they functioned like armed enforcers of racial order. But here's what many people today do not fully understand. Black Americans were not a small minority of bus riders. In many southern cities, they made up the majority of the bus system's customers. In Montgomery, Alabama, black residents accounted for around 75% of bus riders in the 1950s. The very people who be humiliated daily were also financially sustaining the system, and that contradiction would eventually ignite one of the most important protest movements in American history. But before the movement exploded, countless ordinary people suffered in silence. Domestic workers traveled to white neighborhoods before dawn. Elderly black citizens forced to stand while seats remained empty. Children learning at an early age that the law itself viewed them as inferior. The psychological damage ran deep, because segregation was never just about seats on a bus. It was about power. Every sign, every insult, every forced relocation inside the bus sent the same message: you are beneath us. And perhaps the cruelest part of all, and then came December 1st, 1955, Montgomery, Alabama. A 52-year-old black seamstress boarded a city bus after work. Her name was Rosa Parks. The bus became crowded. The driver ordered Parks and several other black passengers to surrender their roles for white riders. Three complied. Rosa Parks did not. Contrary to popular myths, she was not simply a tired old woman who randomly refused to stand. She was a trained activist connected to the NAACP, the National Association of Advancement of Colored People. And her arrest was not an isolated moment. It became the spark that ignited years of frustration and resistance already building beneath the surface. Parks was arrested and charged with violating segregation laws, but news spread rapidly through Montgomery's black community. And soon, something extraordinary began to happen. Thousands of black residents decided they would stop riding the buses entirely. The Montgomery bus boycott began on December 5th, 1955, and it would last 381 days. Think about that for a moment. Over a year, people walked miles to work, in rain, in heat, in exhaustion. Some used black-owned taxi services, charging reduced fares. Many simply walked. Not for days, for months. The boycott devastated Montgomery's bus revenue, and it transformed a young pastor named Martin Luther King Jr. into a national leader. But the response from segregationists was vicious. Boycott leaders received death threats. Homes were bombed. Police harassed participants constantly. Martin Luther Jr.'s own house was attacked while his wife and daughter were inside. And yet, movement continued growing, because by that point, the issue was larger than buses. The boycott had become a direct challenge to the entire system of Jim Crow segregation. Then finally, on November 13th, 1956, the United States Supreme Court upheld a federal court ruling declaring bus segregation unconstitutional. On December 21st, 1956, Montgomery's buses were officially desegregated. Black passengers could legally sit wherever they wanted, but victory did not erase hatred overnight. Snipers reportedly fired into buses. Violence and intimidation continued. Many white Southerners resisted integration furiously. Still, something irreversible has changed. For decades, segregation had depended on fear, silence, and obedience. Now, millions had seen proof that organized resistance could challenge even the most deeply rooted system of oppression. And the Montgomery's bus boycott became one of the defining beginning of the modern civil rights movement. But perhaps the most haunting part of this story is how recent it really is. This was not ancient history. Many people who lived through bus segregation are still alive today. Children who once watched their parents stand humiliated